Well, hello and welcome everyone. This is Victor's Vegan 360, and today I'm just going to show you a little intro to a program, probably one of the best programs out there for making 2D games. It's called Clickteam Fusion 2.5. And just a little disclaimer before I get on with tutorial. I did not get paid for this video at all. I'm just making it because I think it will help loads of people out there. And I didn't really plan this video. This is just a sort of introduction video to the software, and hopefully I'm gonna be able to cover the basic things in it. Yeah, if you are not aware, there was, at the moment of this video being going live on YouTube, there is a humble bundle going on about Clickteam Fusion 2.5, and I'll put the link under the video. If you look underneath in the details, it should have the link to this bundle. And I suggest you have a look at it because it's really worth the money. For $15 you can get the Clickteam Fusion developer upgrade and several exporters that are worth like several £100 altogether. So yeah, I'd say it's a really good deal. So we close this off and we get into the intro screen for the Clickteam Fusion 2.5. So what do we have here? First of all, we have the information about the news of Clickteam. We can scroll our mouse to go through them, up and down. So obviously the first news is about the bundle that's going on now, and the games that have been released, and certain exporters, and some of them are adverts. Now we have obviously the normal menu bar, like in most programs, file, edit, etc. And we have the toolbar to open, load and save projects, which is basically here. So let's start our little project here to have a look what the interface is. First of all, you'll see in this window there is basically an empty frame that can be selected, and this is how Clickteam Fusion 2.5 works. You work in certain frames. Usually each frame means each level or a menu in your game. So the moment we are on the Storyboard editor, which shows us all the frames, so if we want to create more frames, we just click more. Got to click right on there. Well, sometimes it doesn't work, so yeah, for me, yeah, if I click on the right mouse button, it can work. And you create new frames. You can right click on them and go to the other editors after that. So which editors does Clickteam Fusion 2.5 have? Obviously the Storyboard editor that we just had a look at. The other three editors will be explained momentarily. If we select a frame, like a first frame, we can go to either one of these editors, the other editors. If we go to frame editor, we are presented with the sort of playfield for our game, and basically it shows us everything that will be shown when we run a game. So if we run the whole program right now, it's obviously blank, and yeah, that's what the game will look like. It's like a preview window for the start of a game. So all the objects that are being used in your game can be placed here by double clicking, and then you choose whichever object you need. And obviously this is a program for making primarily 2D games. The main object that we will be using is going to be active, and if we place it here, you'll see a little like diamond shaped image, which is basically a sprite for our object. The sprite can be edited like visually. Basically, sprite is just an image that can be edited as a single picture or as animation, or yeah, basically those are the only two options. So if we double click it, we can edit it and say we want to add some new frames to it to make it into animation rather than just one image. We copy, we paste, or we can right click and simply clone frame, and then we start to add some features to it. So for the first frame, if we click on left click on the first frame, we add a little circle here, and the second one we make a bigger circle, and the third one we make an even bigger circle. Now if we click play, it will show us the preview animation. That was really quick. Guess what? We can change the speed of animation as well. Direction options, we can change the speed to lower it a little bit. So yeah, I just scrolled my mouse wheel to basically set the speed, and by clicking loop, the animation will basically repeat itself continuously. If we click play now, it will loop like this, a bit slower. So if we want to save changes, we click OK. That's the basic of changing the appearance, the animation and or image of the active object. Basically the characters, the pickups, the interactive objects, most of the stuff in game that you see on the screen can be made with active objects. That's the base of Clickteam Fusion. So if we run application now, we will see that this object appears and display an animation by default. So next thing is the event editor. Since we are in the frame editor at the moment, this frame is selected automatically, so when we click on event editor, it basically loads the same frame. So as you can see, we're still on frame 1. And this is where the programming happens. Basically, you don't need to know any coding, so don't worry for Clickteam Fusion. If you don't know any coding language, that's alright, because it uses visual, as you would call it, logics. So it uses conditions. If something happens, like if a player presses a button, then something will happen in a game. And that something happening we are calling actions, and I'll show you what it is. So if we click on new condition with left mouse button, we can have one of the conditions to be selected from this menu. So as you can see, we've added an active object, and it's already displayed as one of the possible conditions in conditions menu. So we are going to select if the player presses a button on a keyboard. So press mouse pointer and keyboard option, go to keyboard, and upon pressing a key, let's say I press the Z key, because it's mostly used in 2D games, well, in classic 2D games at least. And then we press another new condition, and if the player presses another key, X, also quite popular in some 2D games, and now we want the active to say appear and reappear when we press certain keys. So When we press Z, it's gonna disappear, become invisible. When we press X, it's gonna reappear, so become visible again. How do we do it? So we got two events when player presses Z and when player presses X. So we just right click on the column where it has active, our active object, go to visibility and click on make object invisible. So if we run it now, run the application, the object is playing animation. If we press Z, the object disappears. However, if we press X, nothing happens because we haven't set anything in this column yet for this row in the event where player presses X. So what we need to do is same as before. We right click in the column onto the active object, go to visibility and make object reappear. So now if we run the application, we press Z, object disappears. We press X, object reappears. Obviously this is just the basic example of how to make active behave in the scene. And how do we actually edit the object in the scene that we already created? Well, let's have a look at that briefly by going back into the frame editor. If we want to change the object position, we just click and drag it. Simple as that. We can drag it anywhere, and we can place it pretty much at any point. Just beware, if it is placed too far from the scene, then it probably is going to be deleted because there is a tick somewhere in the option that when the object gets too far from the frame, it can be destroyed. It's just scrolling options. Yeah, so just make sure the active objects that are needed are created in the scene inside the white box. And yeah, in case you're wondering why these dots are here, basically it's just an option to show the grid and hide the grid. It makes it easier to kind of orientate the objects in 2D space. And just so you know, if we click on the active object, it has some properties windows here, just the same as for any other object. Active is just an example. This one has certain tabs, shall we call them. One of them says size and position, usually the second one from the left. And if you look here, it has X and Y position, and if we drag and move the object to different areas, they change. Now, Clickteam Fusion uses the grid of 0, 0 from top left. What does it mean? It means that all the object X position starts from the left. So if we have active exactly at the left, then X will be 0. If we have it exactly at the top, Y will be 0. So this is X, this is Y, like in just normal maths, geometry. And yeah, if we want to like move it, for example, not with our mouse but with arrow keys on the keyboard, we can do that as well. And if as I move it down, look how this is changing. This is basically because Y is calculated from the top, so if we move it down, it actually increases. That will be used in the formulas when we get onto them in our further lessons and tutorials. So we've had a look at the three editors: the storyboard editor, the frame editor, and the event editor. And so there is one more editor that we would need to talk about, that is the event list editor. And basically what it does, it shows all the information from event editor in a sort of organized list. And you might want to use it if you have to change the order of algorithm. Now, algorithm is just basically the programming that you use. So basically everything in event editor is your programming. Don't mix up with coding, because coding actually means that you have to type the code up with the keyboard. Clickteam is basically named like that for a purpose, because it mainly uses mouse and clicking to create your logics and your objects. And yeah, I mean, if you create like new condition, say at the start of the frame, which is basically located in storyboard controls, if we click on this chessboard with the knight and select start of the frame, it will basically do something at the beginning of the game. In this, excuse me, at the beginning of the frame, not the game, because game can have several frames. And yeah, let's say the object will first reappear in case it is invisible from the start, and then it will disappear. Visibility. Oh, I think I clicked the wrong one. So if you want, like if you made a mistake and you want to delete one of the events, or actions, you just have to click on that thing. So on the event or action, and look for a delete option. If there are several, then you can select which one you want to delete. So I delete one reappear, and then I go to visibility and make it invisible. So now what will happen, at the beginning of the frame, the object will reappear. In our case, it will just show up again because it's not invisible. You can find the visibility options in the first tab, where it says display options. You can untick the box right here, and it will become invisible from the start. So what will happen according to this logic? It will reappear, so become visible, then it will become invisible straight away. Let's check it out. Run application. As you can see, the object is not visible. Now if we say wanted to do it the other way around, so make the object disappear, then have it reappear, there isn't really an option here to change the order of these two events. However, in event list editor we can do that by simply clicking on the event and dragging it above to the previous event, and that will swap them places, as you can see. So now when we launch the application, at the start of the frame the object will become invisible and then will reappear. As we can see, the object is now visible, simply because we changed the order of events. Once again, programming is very crucial about the order of things you do. So, for example, if you want to have some object display a score of the game and then add one to it, all on one event, then you'll first need to actually add one to it and then display the score of the game, because otherwise it will display the old score and simply upgrade, like add the number to the score without actually showing the new score, if that makes sense. But again, we can look into this into further in like next tutorials. So for now I'm just gonna say a few more words about the interface. As you probably noticed, there is a Workspace toolbar on the left. It shows you the basic overview of all the frames and objects in there. At the moment we have active object, and this one shows all the objects in the particular selected frame. So at the moment we're on frame 1. it will show us the objects from frame 1. If we were to say add some other objects like advanced menu object here, just the ones I have, some of them, let's say I wanted to add physics engine, which we'll have a look later. As you can see, they're all being added here, and they're also added in the Workspace toolbar. Now, one more thing. Oh, I probably should have said it at the beginning of tutorial. Basically, in order to test the application, you can either run frame separately, so this will only run this frame 1, or run application as a whole. This will include all frames. Also, there is a library toolbar at the bottom. If you hover over the library toolbar button, it will open the library toolbar, and you can select different presets of objects, such as, if we go into local library category, then double click games subcategory, we can see different categories for different types of games. So if we go to characters, we have a full choice of different character types. So if we click like hero with weapons, we get different choices for already animated characters. They're mainly active objects, so if we drag like this one, all I did was drag and drop the character from the library. We double click it, you can see there's already some pre-made animations. So if we check it out, it's actually a really good animation. And I can talk about angles a bit later on. All it is just different sets of animations for each direction. So yeah, at the moment all we need to know is that library contains all sort of pre-made objects with different options, different animations, different styles, and so on. So for now, this is it for the intro for Clickteam Fusion, and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and I also hope that you check out the Humble Bundle, because I think it's a really good deal, and you can get several hundred pounds worth of software for just $15. As much as $15. You can obviously pay more if you want to, but yeah, that's the deal. Good luck with your game creations, and see you next time. That was Victor's Wagon 360.